no one tells you how to live life as a blind person when you've been sighted your whole life. I'm Lucy, I'm 25, I'm a content creator and broadcaster, and I'm completely blind. Growing up for me was like any normal childhood, really. I think my parents, not knowing anyone disabled themselves, they didn't really know what to do when sight loss came knocking at my door. You know, I, at age 8, went for a routine eye check with my sister and my mom. I really remember it vividly, even though I was only 8, that this ophthalmologist just basically turned to my mom and said, you know, your daughter's eyes are really poorly. You need to rush her to Birmingham Eye Hospital. And my mom was like, sorry, come again? You know, it was just kind of so out of the blue. We didn't know that it was related to this, but I have a rare genetic condition called incontinenti pigmenti. At age 4, I had lumps on the backs of my legs. It was like a skin condition. That's how it presented itself. And, you know, apparently it was now in my eyes, it was affecting my eyes. From age 11 to 17, I was always going to Birmingham Eye Hospital, and then eventually, because I lost the sight in my right eye at age 11 due to my condition, I then got referred to Moorfields Eye Hospital in London. My condition is so rare, and I think, you know, the condition being so rare really makes me kind of think, why me, I guess, when I was so young. The way it happened was really sudden, like everything in my condition. You know, the backs of my eyes bleed a lot, and then my retina detached, which is the back of your eye, which is the wallpaper of your eye, it pinged off. It was really, really weird, actually. The consultant that had been taking care of me for years and years, called Professor Moore, was actually retiring on the same week that I was going blind and losing my eyesight. And the very last visual memories that I have is in that hospital ward, and him, you know, walking up to my hospital bed and being like, Lucy, we always hoped it wouldn't come to this. And then, you know, what rung in my ears then was hope, you know, like, what is hope to me? And because I'd always hoped that I'd never go blind and it was happening, what really was hope now, you know? And I think it still gets to me that I do have a lot of trauma associated with that time in my life. My auntie actually really clung to my hand. My mum was sitting next to me and she said, Lucy, you know, even though you're here right now, this is not the end of Lucy Edwards. But I did believe that it was. I really did, you know. I had to cling on to those words so much. I was the last one to go in for my operation to save my sight, and they didn't know how much of the retina they had to cut away or how much was going to happen. And I listened and listened and listened to songs on repeat. I think it was one from the Vampire Diaries, actually, by Tom Walker. And honestly, still listening to that song now brings back that trauma. I remember actually being wheeled out of my operation and having a bandage on my left eye, and obviously my right eye, you know, it had no light perception in from age 11, so I didn't have that. And I was literally out. I was like, did the operation go okay? You know, it's kind of doom when your consultant comes in on a Saturday morning in his jeans being like, how many fingers am I holding up? And then it just literally came crashing down. That he couldn't save as much as he wanted to. I think ultimately, when I was age 17, sitting in that hospital bed when I was meant to be, you know, going on an A-level trip, instead of being on an aeroplane with my friends, I was in the eye hospital like I always was. Sight loss has been just such a part of my childhood. I couldn't necessarily distance from it, even though the amount of times I've wanted to like it not be the case, or ask myself why me, it's always followed me, and I had to grow up so quickly. There was no choice. I had no choice in the matter. I had to accept that this was me. No one tells you how to live life as a blind person when you've been sighted your whole life, practically. I say that I dealt with vision loss throughout my whole childhood, but it was so abstract. It was like on those days that I'd go on the train with my mom, I'd be a bit grouchy, and I could just about, get around with my cane and, kind of fake being sighted in a way. I had enough vision to get around. But truly, at that point, it all went black for me on that day. I think the immediate change in me as a person when I first lost my vision was learning to do everything again. I had to learn how to cook again and eat in a certain way because, all my depth perception was off, and I had to learn how to walk all the routes that I had previously seen, and everything that I started to do, learn how to use a computer. And my dad and I and my sister were so techie when we were younger, just touching a computer and not navigating it in the same way was so traumatic for me, so traumatic for me. I remember my dad really trying to sit with me, learning all these keyboard shortcuts to make my computer talk to me. And now I whiz on them. But at the time, I just felt, I couldn't hold the computer without feeling upset. Even thinking about them now, it's kind of tapping into a point that I don't often think about. Whenever I tried to go on to YouTube and type in a makeup look that I wanted to do, I would be faced with a lot of inaccessible videos. And my sister was so sweet. Alice would sit there for hours and hours and hours, audio describing lots of content to me. A lot of makeup is processes that if you learn them and you have the right tools, if you go systematically through things, you can be successful without a mirror. And my sister became my mirror for me. She's my eyes and she's my everything, and I really don't feel like I need my vision when I have her. I started sharing my life with everyone on the internet because I didn't see anyone like me. I honestly would log on and type in blindness to Google in the hope that something would come up, and nothing would. So I was like, this is just not right, guys. This is just not okay. There needs to be someone, when you type in something, little Lucy's wondering what life is like, whether it's okay to be blind. Something needs to come up, something bigger needs to happen here, I didn't have a community or grow up with blind people around me. I definitely grew up in a sighted world. So all of the things, like living independently and being able to make a cup of tea and just the basics, I didn't know or have any role models to tell me that it would be okay. So I was really excited to jump on and chat about my journey, and kind of just, even if I didn't get everything perfect, because I was 17 when I started YouTube, probably quite a lot of emotion came through my voice back then. I think even though, life wasn't perfect, I wanted to kind of have a little bit of hope in there that the moments that I did film were my happy moments, and were the moments that I could show everyone the progress that I'd made in getting back to myself. And it was such a happy thing for me, and it's just continued. I had a video quite early on go really viral called Blind Girl Does Their Own Makeup. I remember getting a Urban Decay naked palette, and it had all of the eyeshadow colours from light to dark systematically on the pan, and I would stick audio labels above them and hover my pen friend over and it would be so accessible. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. I'm gonna vlog about that. And because there was no one doing that at the time, everyone I sort of knew in my circle got naked palettes and started labeling them because there was no one talking about it. So eventually I did a guide called the Blind Beauty Guide, where all of my top tips and tricks are in there. It honestly made me feel so happy when a commenter would message me and say, you know, I can do my eyeshadow, or I've labeled my palette exactly like you have, Lucy, and now I feel really good about myself. And you know, that's what spurs me on to this day, creating content online. I just want to make people feel good. I want to share my story in order for other people to not feel alone. I want to show my vulnerabilities and my scars in order for people to grow, because I felt like I didn't have anyone to lean on when I was first going blind. Makeup is typically a very visual art form. So being able to do it successfully in an independent way without any working eyes was such an achievement for me. And I could prove that, you know, it isn't necessarily a visual thing. It is very much about the ritual and routine of putting on products and feeling really glam about it and, you know, being Lucy. I always knew that I would have a career kind of speaking and telling my story in some way or another, or fighting for the rights of people, but I didn't know sort of in what way. I remember getting the call to say, you are the first BBC Radio 1 presenter who's blind. And I was like, you what now? It was absolutely insane. Like, I think it was one of the best moments of my life. I just felt so much adrenaline through my veins. I was like, I didn't even think that there would be this much acceptance of me and my disability ever. I reported on there as a broadcast journalist. I went out and about and I did a lot of stories, talking to blind people, going to festivals, you know, being in driverless cars, and you know, really delving into, you know, new canes and the new tech behind long white canes. I think as the years go on, we're going to see more and more and more people on our TV screens who are disabled, because we are able. And it just, that one point in my life really made, it was a standout moment, but it made me believe that I can see the ability in disability. What I would say to other people who haven't necessarily found a voice or found their place, never give up on you. Always remember that being disabled is a part of you, but it's one part of you. Remember that you are beautiful, and every single day that you wake up is a new chance to prove to yourself that you can live your life without limitations. Don't place any limits on you. My life is audible. The art of description is beautiful. I think to the future. I think what I can become. I think of the Lucy Edwards that is tomorrow, not what she was. I'm blind and it's okay. I'm blind and I'm not broken.